Hi there, Diane Pasco's here, emotional freedom coach and sound Reiki master. In this video, you're going to get a better understanding of what EFT is. And at the end, we're actually going to do a session, a little mini session that you can follow on feeling overwhelmed with work. That seems to be coming up a lot lately. Who's here to help me and during this interview is my trainer and supervisor in EFT, Susan Bushell, which is an intuitive energy therapist that specializes in energy psychology. Passionate about facilitating clients' personal transformation, she has expertise in working with all aspects of trauma, depression, anxiety, and fear of change. Susan also teaches, accredits, and supervises EFT students all over Canada, bringing her extensive experience to those ready to learn how to tap with confidence and effectiveness for themselves and their clients. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for this opportunity to talk about EFT.
Thank you for agreeing to do this for viewers and everyone else out there that just needs a better understanding of what exactly EFT is. Mm-hmm. Where can you start? So what is EFT for those that really don't even have a clue?
Yep. EFT is not electronic funds transfer. It's emotional freedom techniques, and otherwise known as tapping. I think a lot of people know it by its lay term, which is tapping. And it looks a little weird when you first see it because you're tapping on your face and on your torso and on your hand. But basically what you're doing is, most people have heard of acupuncture and acupressure. So when you think of EFT, think of acupressure for your emotions. So it's a little bit unusual, but we focus on a discomfort. And I love that you've chosen overwhelm at work. We can work on that today. So if someone's feeling overwhelmed at work, they've got too much to do, or things are just not flowing at work, and they feel overwhelmed, they can take their fingertips and tap on very particular points on their face and on their body, the same way as an acupuncturist would use an acupuncture needle on very specific points to help you with, say, for example, cravings around smoking, right? So if you were trying to quit smoking. So it's the same sort of thing, except it's not usually, although people do use it for physical things as well, but it's usually used for emotional components of life.
Got it. And how exactly does it work? I get that question a lot.
Yeah. It works basically by calming down the nervous system and calming down the brain. So if we watch your brain on an EEG machine and we see what your brain waves are doing, over the course of a session, which is usually sort of 45 minutes to an hour, is that the brain becomes very calm. It goes into a long brainwave state, much like you would be if you were in meditation, if you were an experienced meditator and say you'd been there for about an hour. One of the components of what's the mechanism for, like, how does this calm my brain down, or this calm my brain down? We do know that the one part, and this may be the whole deal, we don't know yet, but one thing we do know is that it seems to be related to the collagen in the fascia of the body. So the fascia of the body is a membranous tissue, very well hydrated, very stretchy, and it's situated right underneath our skin. It's designed to slide over all our bones and joints and muscles, and it allows I like to think of it as the shock absorber of the body. And in the fascia, there's a lot of collagen. And interestingly, collagen is a semiconductor. It conducts electricity. So we have a sort of a mechano-electrical stimulation system, whereas when we tap on these points, that little bit of sort of mechanistic tapping or thumping on the point seems to send an electrical signal via the collagen to calm the brain. And of course, when you calm the nervous system, when you calm the brain, the whole body calms down. So you'll often see people at a certain point or a number of points in the session, they'll take a deep sigh, their shoulders will drop, right? Their breathing will become more regulated, their heart rate will calm, even their blood pressure. There's been research done where they check stress measurements like cortisol levels and adrenaline and things like that. And everything, starts to drop. Blood pressure, things like that starts to drop when we're tapping and it's going well, and the issue at hand is being addressed thoroughly and robustly with an experienced practitioner.
Yeah, and I also saw some studies were done with even taking blood work, where they'll take some blood work and they'll notice the cells, something is unbalanced, and then they'll do EFT, check the blood work again, and then all of a sudden, the cells have changed in the blood.
Yeah, I'm not sure if those are randomized controlled studies, but there have been a few. I used to have a video actually done by a woman from the States, and she had a live blood cell analyst analyze her blood while she was experiencing motions and looking at the blood cells under the slide on the microscope. And they often, like for example, she would stir up feelings of sadness, and then they would take a live sample and they would look at it under the microscope, and the blood cells would be sticking together. They'd be a little misshapen. They wouldn't be flowing through the cytoplasm. They'd be sort of sticking along the sides. And then she would tap, and she would tap away the sadness until she calmed down and she wasn't feeling sad anymore. And they'd take another sample of her blood, and the blood cells would be that, that perfect little teardrop shape, and they'd be flowing through the cytoplasm. They wouldn't be sticking together and glomming onto each other. So we do know that emotions affect us right at the cellular level, and you can really see that fairly easily at the blood level for sure. But I don't know of, and it may just be that I haven't come across it, but I don't know of any hard science that would say EFT has a positive effect on your blood. It may be out there now. I find that the science is rolling really, really quickly now. When I first started tapping, the science was there, but it was weak, and now it's actually quite strong. And actually, I've got a document here that if your listeners are interested, it's backdated to the beginning of 2018, but that's not too far back.
Yeah, science behind EFT would be awesome.
Yeah, so as of January 2018, there were over 100 research studies, meta-analyses, and review articles that have been published in energy psychology methods in peer-reviewed journals. These modalities have been researched by more than 200 investigators in over 12 different countries in more than 20 different peer-reviewed journals, like the Journal of General Psychology, like Science. So there's lots of information out there. The studies include the journals, include top-tier journals such as Clinical Psychology, the APA's Psychotherapy, Theory, Research, Practice, Training and Review of General Psychology, and the oldest psychiatric journal in North America, which is the Journal of Nervous and Mental Disease. EFT research includes investigators affiliated with many different universities and institutions in the U.S. These range from Harvard Medical School to the University of California at Berkeley, to the City University of New York, to Walter Reed Military Medical Center, to Texas A&M University, to JFK University. Institutions in other countries whose faculty have contributed to the EFT research include Staffordshire University in the UK, Lund University in Sweden, Ankara University in Turkey, Santo Tomás University in the Philippines, Lister Hospital in England, Cesar Vallejo University in Peru, and Bond University in Australia. Research topics include lots of different things, but here's just a little bit of a list. Reducing test anxiety in university students. They use nursing students for that. Reducing anxiety around public speaking, reducing stress in women undergoing surgery, reducing anxiety of improving communication skills in social work students, for reducing fear in first stage labor of maternity patients, for smoking cessation, for weight reduction, including depressive symptoms, for PTSD, including depression, anxiety, trauma symptoms like hypervigilance, and trigger avoidance. There's lots of good research on phobias like fear of small rodents, reducing anxiety in patients about to undergo a procedure of coronary intervention, Dr. Petta Stapleton in Australia at Bond University has over 20 years experience as a registered clinical and health psychologist, and she's currently an associate professor in psychology. She's a world-leading researcher in EFT, and if you like, I can send you a link of her speaking about the research behind EFT and the science behind EFT, and you can attach it to this recording if you like.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I'll put it up.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, easy.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, one thing I love about EFT is that it can be used for anything, from weight loss to simple anxiousness about something simple, or wanting to get past a certain career block, to some severe traumas from childhood. And, it doesn't have to be
exactly. Or even when you don't know what's up, you just know you don't feel right. Something feels weird. You don't really know what it is, but you can just start tapping on it. And as you start tapping and your body starts to calm down, often you gain access. Oh, okay, that's what's bothering me, right? Or you get a hint or a clue as to what's up.
Oh yeah, it's awesome. I've even had that experience myself where it's like, okay, I'm getting a funny feeling in my stomach.
Yeah.
Start tapping, okay, this feeling in my stomach, and then all of a sudden I'll get an insight.
Yeah, exactly. That's a perfect term, an insight.
Yeah, it just like pops up.
Yeah.
Out of, like nowhere, it's not analyzed or anything like that. It's just an insight that just pops up. And it's awesome. And all of a sudden the stomach just.
Yeah, and that's that's something I should probably mention is it's important, to realize that you just start tapping on something, and it's important to realize that the reason you're a little stuck in an emotion is often because you don't have access to the cause. You don't have that sense of mindfulness and conscious awareness, and that's really common because the research is telling us now that we really only have access at the conscious thinking level at about 10% of the motivators behind our behavior. So when something's really stuck, you need to find another intervention, thinking about it, trying to figure it out. I mean, it's like trying to do a puzzle, but most of the pieces you don't have, right? It's impossible. It's hard to know what that picture looks like. So if you just start tapping and getting the energy flowing in your body, and often an insight will arrive, or a piece of the puzzle, or geez, that's interesting, I'm thinking about this, or I'm reminded of that, or for some reason I'm remembering my grandparents' backyard and there's a story there, and maybe the story has some trauma in it, right? So that's what's kind of cool about EFT, although it looks a little odd at first look. When you focus on the discomfort, which is what you have to do, you have to kind of just key in a little bit to the discomfort without a lot of overthinking, and just allow the story to unfold, allow the memory to arrive, allow the limiting belief to be remembered or thought, and then you recognize it as, that's holding me back. For example, it's, I was working with someone this morning in session, and we were working on the fear that I feel when I don't have control. Because, and as we kept tapping, and what came out was, well, when I don't have control, I don't have a say about things. And it's like, okay, this is procedure. I have to follow procedure. There's rules around this, and I'm going to get swept along in that. And wait a second. What if something goes wrong? What if I'm hurt, right? And what if something awful happens? So at first blush, things are not maybe really clear, but as you start tapping, the story starts to unfold, and again, I could talk about that, right, till the cows come home, but really the best way to learn about EFT is to do it, right? Is to feel it from the inside. And one of the things that's a little unusual is that you do focus on the negative, which a lot of people worry about in the beginning. Yes. When they're just learning EFT, they think, well, if I focus on the negative, isn't it going to make the negative stronger? Isn't it going to make it more potent in my life? And that would be true if you weren't tapping, right? But as long as you're tapping, it's like that feeling is coming up and then it's flowing through you. And the energy tends to flow down and out through the legs, like through the hips and the legs and out through the soles of the feet. So it's not uncommon for people to feel a little tingly or a little coolness as that energy releases out through the body. And then, and often people will see a brighter perspective on the problem. Or even if it was an event, that was quite traumatic, as they tap, they may find the silver lining in that event. Geez, if I hadn't been through that, I would never have learned this, right? Or sometimes they'll recognize that they do have choice when they thought they didn't, right? Things are good or bad, they're right or wrong, like things are black and white here, and there's no middle ground. And we start tapping and they begin to recognize, wait a second, it's not just this or this, I actually do have choice. And that's because blood, as you tap, blood rushes back into the front of the brain. And the prefrontal cortex is in charge of perspective, impulse control, recognizing that we have choice, allowing ourselves to see a more neutral or brighter perspective when we thought it was all dark and awful, right? So if we don't have enough blood in that part of the brain because we're frightened and the blood has sort of gone to our arms and legs so we can run away or fight our way out of danger, that part of the brain is not online. We don't have access to what it does. But as we tap, the blood rushes back into that part of the brain, lots of oxygenated blood, all of a sudden it can do what it's there to do, and we're back online again.
Yeah, I do definitely love the simplicity of tapping.
Yeah.
And how it's not about analyzing or trying to figure out, because I mean, if we could be healed just by analyzing and talking about things over and over and over again, I think everybody would be healed.
Yeah, exactly. Because we do think about our stuff a lot, and we do talk about our stuff a lot. And sometimes that helps and we feel understood. At least I'm not the only person that knows what I'm dealing with. And often we want to ask for advice, right? Have you been through this? What would you do? What did you do when you had this? But what I've noticed is that there's an inherent ability for us to heal. Yeah. And the same as when we fall down and scrape a knee, we don't have to tell our body to heal. It just knows how. As long as we clean the wound out, we're good, right? And so it's the same with EFT. If you clean out the limiting belief, the shock that you went through, that thought that you had when things went bad, right? As long as you clear that from your nervous system and really calm it down at the brain level, the light shines. And often we can hear that inner wisdom that we all have. I like to talk about it as the wise old woman inside, or the wise old man inside of us, right? That we have a wisdom inside of us that knows how to solve any problem we have. We just have to be able to hear that wisdom. And as we tap and things, it's like we clear the static in the room and we're able to hear that voice.
That's awesome. So let's begin with the working on overwhelm.
Mm-hmm.
For those, is there anything you want to add first before we get there?
No, I mentioned that we focus on the negative, which is a little unusual. We have 2 phases to EFT. We have a setup, and I like to use the sore spots because these are neurolymphatic points, and they're a little bit tender because there's lots of lymph. Donna Eden, if anybody is a Donna Eden fan here, I like to think of her as the queen of energy medicine. She says, and she can see energy moving, so she's always been able to do that. She says she sees a little more energy moving when people use the sore spots than when they use the side of the hand, but both work. So I like to use this, and we have a setup, what we call a setup, and it goes like this. Even though I have this issue and describe the issue in detail, I deeply and completely accept myself. Okay, so even though I have this issue, this problem, right, this limiting belief, even though I'm really stuck, whatever it is, I feel lost, right? I deeply and completely accept myself. And we do that 3 times. And then we choose a reminder phrase, which is just a very short part of what we said here. We just shorten it down and we tap over and over through these points. And I'll walk you through them. Remember to breathe, make sure you're hydrated. Remember, we're focusing on the negative, but just while we're tapping. And that's because we want that focus. Basically, the focusing on it lets the subconscious and the body know that's what I want to get rid of. That's what I want to calm down. Okay. So if you're using a very general term like overwhelm or fear, right, or worry, it'll get you going, but at some point you got to get specific about what specifically is it that you're afraid of. Like I was mentioning, the person I was working with in session earlier today, it was fear of weakness, vulnerability, and not having a say. You know, I could have jumped in there with my thinking head and thought, okay, it must be about, you know, fear of not having control, and something's going to go bad that I can't change. So it turns out, because I kept myself out of it, what turned up was that it was actually about not having a voice, not being able to say and ask for what I want, what she wanted. And that was a pattern that she learned quite early on in life. And she did admit that she was very shy as a small child. She was very quiet. So she didn't feel, for whatever reason, you know, it's not like she had horrible parents or anything, but she just realized that she couldn't speak up when she wanted to, or she had decided she couldn't. It may not even been reality, but subjectively she decided, I can't speak up. So it was a scary situation for her. And as we tapped, it became clearer and clearer. So that's what usually happens, is the brain, the conscious awareness will come to something more specific as you tap.
Awesome.
Okay. So let's pretend, I guess we'll have to sort of pretend that, you know, we're overwhelmed with work, and we'll throw in some, well, do you want to, why don't you pretend to be the client, and you can come up with a scenario of you being overwhelmed at work, and then we can get specific with you, and you can pretend that that's an issue for you, and we'll go from there.
Okay, sounds good. So work overwhelmed, getting everything that I need to get done.
Yeah.
And making sure that it's perfect. I gotta get it perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I just gotta get it perfect.
Right. Yeah. Okay, I'm just writing this down a little bit to remind me. So the first thing I get you to do is I ask you on a scale of 0 to 10, how overwhelmed do you feel? In other words, how uncomfortable are you from 0 to 10 with this overwhelmed at work feeling?
I'm gonna go with a 6.
A 6, okay. And if you guessed where that 6 feeling was sitting in your body, where would you say it sits?
My stomach.
Yeah, okay. So above or below your belly button?
Above.
Awesome. So you see how we're just getting kind of specific, right? Not just this generalized concern, but we're getting kind of specific about where it is and how it feels in the body. Mm-hmm. So we'll start off with, even though I feel overwhelmed at work.
Even though I feel overwhelmed with work.
Because I have a lot to do and I can't get it all done.
I have a lot to do and I can't get it all done.
But I also have this belief that it all has to be perfect.
But I also have this belief that it all has to be perfect.
And I deeply and completely accept myself.
And I deeply and completely accept myself.
Even though I'm a number 6 on this.
Even though I'm a number 6 on this.
And I can feel it in my stomach.
And I can feel it in my stomach.
I am overwhelmed with work.
I am overwhelmed with work.
I've got a lot to do and it all has to be perfect.
I have a lot to do and it all has to be perfect.
I deeply and completely accept myself anyway.
Accept myself anyway.
Even though I have this problem.
Even though I have this problem.
This issue. I'm overwhelmed at work.
I'm overwhelmed with work.
There's just so much to do, I can't get it all done.
There's just so much to do, I can't get it all done.
And somewhere I decided that it all had to be perfect.
And somewhere I decided it all had to be perfect.
And I deeply and completely accept myself anyway.
Accept myself anyway.
So I think of it as a weigh scale. Here's my problem, but I'm accepting myself anyway. And I love that. And if anybody has trouble saying the words, I accept myself, you can change it up to, I'm willing to work towards learning how to accept myself. So, because for some people, they have a hard time accepting themselves when they're struggling. Good. So now we come up to the inner eyebrow, right on the inner edge of the eyebrow where it meets the bridge of the nose. So we're not above the eyebrow, we're right on the inner eyebrow. And just tapping there, say, I'm so overwhelmed.
I'm so overwhelmed.
And a nice deep breath. And then beside your eyes, right on the corner of the eye, I'm so overwhelmed.
I am so overwhelmed.
And under the eyes, or the top of the cheekbones, I'm so overwhelmed.
I'm so overwhelmed.
And under the nose, I'm so overwhelmed.
I'm So overwhelmed.
Under the mouth, feel that little crease under your mouth. I have so much to do.
I have so much to do.
And there's not enough time.
There's not enough time.
And I'm really overwhelmed.
And I'm really overwhelmed.
And then we're going to come down just under the collarbones on either side of the sternum, right about there. I'm so overwhelmed.
I'm so overwhelmed.
And it all has to be perfect.
And it all has to be perfect.
Under the arms, I'm so overwhelmed.
I'm so overwhelmed.
I'm taking a nice deep breath. So my camera, so where we are here on the side of the body, it's like on the side seam of your shirt, but it sits like where the side of your bra would be, or about 4 inches under your armpit. Okay, let's go around one more time. And it all has to be perfect.
It all has to be perfect.
Beside the eyes, everything has to be perfect.
Everything has to be perfect.
Under the eyes, I decided a while ago that it all has to be perfect.
I decided a while ago that everything has to be perfect.
Under the nose, I can't let anything slide.
I can't let anything slide.
Under the mouth, it all has to be perfect.
It all has to be perfect.
And under the collarbones, it all has to be perfect.
It all has to be perfect.
All the time.
All the time.
I wonder why I'm overwhelmed.
Overwhelmed.
Yeah. It all has to be perfect.
It all has to be perfect.
Nice deep breath. Okay, and have a little sip of water. You know, this one comes up a lot because we strive very, very hard in our culture, many cultures. We expect ourselves to be perfect, which is a little bit like trying to find infinity. Good luck on that. And we're told everywhere, do your best, do your best, do your best. And it really fosters this sense of anxiety about always trying to do better, always trying to do better. And it can literally feel, you know, like you're getting swept away on a wave of overwhelm.
Yeah, and I've also come across with some that, you know, it's not letting others down.
Yeah.
You know, being there for others, making sure they do that great job for others, and that. So I've seen that as well. So with that one, it's just a little different.
Yeah, it's an aspect. It could be an aspect, right? So let's pretend that's what came up for you. Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm realizing I really don't want to let them down. And I don't want to let them down because if I do, that would mean
I would disappoint them.
Yeah.
That's what she had mentioned. One of the
clients. Yeah, and disappointing them would mean
I didn't do a good enough job.
Yeah, and if I don't do a good enough job, that means
I can get fired.
I can get fired. And getting fired means
I can't pay my bills.
Yeah. There you go.
Brings you back to that survival.
And not paying bills is all about survival. Exactly. Yeah, you got it. So again, and we come back to the overwhelm from 0 to 10. We're pretending a little bit here, but let's say you're the client and we're working on overwhelm at work. It was 6 initially. Mm-hmm. We've tapped into I can't let others down because that would disappoint them. Mm-hmm. How strong is that feeling?
Not letting others down, let's say a 5.
Yeah. So even though I'm a 5 on this. I don't like letting other people down.
I don't like letting other people down.
I don't like letting my clients down.
I don't like letting my clients down.
Because that would be disappointing them. They may fire me. And then I wouldn't be able to pay my bills. This is a survival issue. It's not really about overwhelm at work. It's about how I would feel if I couldn't pay my bills. Yeah, that's a much deeper issue. Mm-hmm. It's a core issue. It's a survival issue. And that's why it's so strong. And I deeply and completely accept myself. Even though I wouldn't want to let them down. I might get fired. What if I can't pay my bills? That would be horrible. That would feel really scary. It's a survival issue for me. No wonder it's a big one.
No wonder it's a big one.
And I deeply and completely accept myself. Even though I don't want to let others down.
Even though I don't want to let others down.
And I try really hard to be perfect with all my work.
I really try hard to be perfect with all my work.
And it leads to this overwhelmed feeling. I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
I really don't want to disappoint them. Nice deep breath. I always want to do my best work. Everything has to be perfect. I want it all to be just so perfect. And if that doesn't happen, they might be disappointed in my work. And in me. And then I could get fired. And if I get fired, I may not be able to pay my bills. And that's pretty scary for me. So here, quite often, somebody will have a little bit of a memory of a time where they couldn't pay their bills, or money was very tight, or growing up and suddenly, one of their parents lost their job and they had to, they couldn't go to summer camp that year, or there wasn't as many Christmas presents that year, or the car broke down and it couldn't be fixed, or maybe they remember their parents feeling really stressed about that situation. Maybe it went on longer than they thought it was going to, or maybe they saw the stress in their parents' eyes, right? Mm-hmm. So quite often it will lead to something, deeper at a time where they were younger and more vulnerable. They'll have a memory about something, and then we'll tap on the specific parts of that memory that hold trauma, right? So let's say, for example, what pops up is that time that my father lost his job and I felt so vulnerable. I knew my dad was worried, right? I knew that we were in trouble. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, I thought my dad was invincible. Or I thought my dad could handle anything. Or I've never seen my father worried like this. It never occurred to me, right? And so they made a decision, or there was a life learning there that was appropriate for the moment. But then sometimes, let's say, they never like to spend money, right? Because of that incident, because of that situation. It's long gone. It's maybe, they were a teenager or a child at the time. The situation's solved now. Everything turned out in the end, it was fine. But the original story has an energy block to it that's causing overwhelm now, or causing, I can't spend any money, even though I have money and I'm very comfortable, I can't spend it. Because what if, right? There's a part of us still functioning from that time where dad had lost his job, or mom had lost her job, or money was really tight for a while.
Yeah, it's quite incredible how from, situations that seem very simple, very, benign.
Yeah.
We can make key decisions without even realizing, and instead of being able to live from our authentic self,
yeah,
start to live from this key decision, this fear, this limiting belief.
Exactly. And it may not apply to life currently, mm-hmm, but it's definitely affecting life currently, because that's the nature of the trauma brain, is that a part of us kind of gets stuck in a loop, like a skipping record. In the old days when we had records and the needle would skip and it just keep playing the same part of the song over and over again. And it's a little bit like that with these energy blocks, that a part of us gets stuck in that moment in time because it was traumatic. And what's traumatic to one person can be really like totally okay with someone else. It's a very subjective process, and it's really about how that particular person felt at that particular time. When you think about the first time you dove off or you jumped off the diving board, it might have been really scary. In that moment, if we took a snapshot, it was like, right, deer in the headlights, oh my God, can I not back up and go back down the ladder? But, after you go over quite a few times and you've done it, it's like, oh, this is fun. I'm okay with this. Or one child goes up the ladder and it's really scary. Another child goes up and it's like, whee, right? It's like, and it's just a very subjective experience. You know, when I'm teaching EFT, I use the example of identical twins, right? Looking at, unfortunately, a cat gets run over in the road. One twin might look at that and say, that's horrible, and this is terrible. They run off crying, running home, looking for comfort. It's the worst thing they've ever seen. The cat's dead. The other twin might look at that scenario and go, cool, wow, I've always wanted to see the insides of an animal. There's your little anatomical junkie, right? It's like, so you just never know how people are going to take things. And, some things, of course, are traumatizing to anyone. But a lot of this stuff is very subjective. And I know it's very much about the decision you made at the time, the decision you made in that moment that things just started to go wrong. Like, oh, I don't have any control here. This is all about procedure and policy. I don't have a voice. If they decide I've done something wrong, I've done something wrong, right? Or even with this one, everything has to be perfect. It's only safe. I'm only safe. I can only pay my bills if everything's perfect.
Yeah, and how everything is just held in the body, and how it also creates physical symptoms, and how EFT can also be used on physical symptoms as well.
Exactly.
And removing or releasing the emotional component to that physical situation.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's still up for debate how EFT helps physical things, but certainly we know so much of our health depends on our level of stress. If we have a lot of stress and it goes on over a long period of time and it's not addressed, we often develop a health issue, and sometimes a serious health issue. But think about it, if we could actually tap down the stress, I mean, stress again is a very general term, but if we could tap down what is upsetting in the moment, or even in the week that it happened, then it might not lead to this chronic state of dis-ease, right, or disease, or this chronic state of stress. When you talk about overwhelm at work, I mean, that's a beautiful example. Let's think about it like if you're in a high-stress job and you're there every day, 5 days a week, and you're in that sort of soup of stressness every day, that could very easily have an effect on your physical health. And so one of the things we find is as we tap, and things calm down, we often get little messages of wisdom about choices different choices we could make in our life, things that might help us to de-stress or to feel less overwhelmed. And I remember I've had a little bit of a theme this summer on tapping on, where did I start? It's funny. I can't remember what the issue was, which is common. It happens a lot as you get further and deeper into it. But as I was tapping down through the layers, and there was definitely a stress and anxiety component to it, and I all of a sudden heard, life doesn't have to be this hard. And I wouldn't have thought of myself as somebody who was making life hard or finding life hard. But when I really pulled back and didn't get offended, just allowed myself to look at it, I was doing too much. I was, spinning my wheels a lot when I didn't need to, when I could delegate more, when I could let things go, where I could be more organized so things were easier, where I was worrying about things that I had no control over, that I couldn't change, that weren't in my hands, right? And so it helped me, that just that awareness of life doesn't have to be this hard was such a gift. And it came to me through EFT. It came to me by tapping down the discomfort until the wisdom emerged, or the choice. I guess it was really a choice. I was being offered a choice.
Yeah, it's awesome what just starts to just show up for us as we're tapping. Before we finish this, is there anything else you want to add for our viewers?
A couple of things. I think I would love to just encourage people to try it. Although it does look a little unusual at first, it looks a little odd, but you get used to that. And this is something you can do privately, right? So you don't have to worry about people seeing you. You can just find a private place in life and work on whatever's causing you discomfort. I tap a lot in the tub, in the shower, when I'm on a long walk. Find a park bench somewhere. Just create your own private space in your back deck or your patio, your balcony, that sort of thing. And I guess probably, you know, I should also mention that I teach EFT, and you know, this is August 2019, but I have a training coming up in Moncton in New Brunswick, September 19th, a 4-day intensive training. And I'm also teaching in October in Guelph. And the end of November, I'm going to be in London, Ontario. So if anybody's in those areas and they're interested in doing the training, they can go to my website, which is freeyouremotions.com, and they can click on the workshops tab, and they'll see a little drop-down menu. And the first one is Combined Levels 1 and 2 EFT. They can look at that. They'll read the whole syllabus. And, you know, this is obviously a great modality for mental health workers as well. But it's also really lovely for just the layperson who wants to be responsible for their own emotional health, which we're right. I mean, you're really right that as we take care of our emotional health, we also take care of our physical health as well. So you can be responsible to your health and taking care of your health by learning an energy psychology technique like EFT.
And thank you for being my trainer, my supervisor.
Oh, it's been lovely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You could feel your passion towards it and your care, and you're really there for your students.
Oh, thank you. And you know, the same for you, that I notice you're very passionate about learning and you care about your clients and you want to get better in ways that will help them.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for watching. Thank you, Susan, for
You're
being
welcome.
part of this.
Yeah, it was really nice to chat with you.
Have a great day, everyone. Bye.